If you're struggling with the IELTS Writing Task 2, keep watching this video just for you. A couple weeks back, a user reached out to me to assess her IELTS essay. This video is going to be about that. We will look at what the essay is, what the mistakes that she made, what makes for a good writer, and of course, by the end of it, I'm also going to give you a 5-day action plan which you can follow to actually improve your writing. So, without further ado, let's get started. Again, like I mentioned, this is basically the IELTS Writing Task 2. We will be reviewing, the essay that we got. So let's get to it. The essay. Now, she had sent me a couple of, actually her name is Alpha. She had sent me a couple of essays, but the one that I decided to go with was this one here. Some people say that ebooks and modern technology will totally replace traditional newspapers and magazines. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Now, a lot of candidates find these essays a little hard to do because, you have to kind of give your opinion, and of course you have to pick which side you want to go with, and just comparing, juxtaposing ideas. So that's the question that we picked. Now let's look at, the answer that she gave us. Now this is the essay, that she sent us. Here's a quick thing you want to keep at the back of your mind. If, for example, if you are going to go buy a car, first you look at it. If it looks pretty, you buy the car. If it doesn't, well, you probably won't, right? Same thing with writing an essay. The first thing that you want to do is glance over and see, does it look okay? Literally. Like, see here, we've got 4 paragraphs, good. It's all broken down. Looks about a fair amount of words are being balanced throughout the essay, so that's good as well. So when we look at the essay itself, it looks good, and you have to follow this format. You need to have an introductory paragraph, you need to have something that you can conclude with, and of course in between you need to have body paragraph 1 and 2. You can even have 3 if you want, but that's what is recommended. Start with at least that. Now, I'll give you a couple of minutes. You can go through it, you can read the essay and see, just have a look at it, just so that you know, so we can discuss it further down. So, moving forward, first of all, what we are going to do is something called a SWOT analysis. So it's basically strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So for Alpha, the writer, the author of this essay, we are going to analyze her as a writer based on this essay. If you've read the essay and you would have written something similar, this analysis would somewhat apply to you, so use it to basically improve your writing if you could, in that sense. So let's first look at the strengths, in her essay. It's clear that Alpha, she has a good understanding of the topic and is able to present clear arguments. Because when you read the essay, she's made some good statements there. The pros and the cons, she's actually made pretty good statements. So of course that's good. Next thing that she did was have a good vocabulary. There is a variety of vocabulary in there. I'll give her that. And of course, she used a lot of sentence structures as well to convey their ideas. So that's important. 2 things you have to keep in the back of your mind when you are writing: variety of vocabulary as well as sentence structures. The better you get at it, the better your score will be. And of course, more clarity in your ideas when you write them. And finally, she did provide specific examples to support her arguments. This is something I highly recommend. And, a few people have reached out to me in the past few weeks. Should we be using examples? Absolutely. If you're making a statement, to back it up, you need to provide examples. And if they can be personal, sure. If they are something you read about, use it. Whatever the example, use it to back what you are saying, to back your reasoning, to support your judgments and basically your statements. So do that. Now, we've looked at some of the strengths. Now let's look at some of the weaknesses that she has. Let's start with the grammatical errors. There are a few of those in the essay, and in the coming section, we will look at exactly what those mistakes are and what the right way to write is. Okay, she used a lot of incorrect verb forms. There were some faulty subject verb agreements, and there was consistent tense usage. So that's an issue as well when you're writing. So that's one thing. Another thing that her essay was lacking was there weren't a lot of clear topic sentences. So a topic sentence is basically when you start a paragraph, that first sentence will basically lay out a good picture to the reader that, hey, this is what this paragraph is going to be about. Her essay, there wasn't a lot of those. Couldn't get a lot of idea until I read further down. So that's one thing that I would recommend that she improves further down. And of course, she could also do some more proofreading and provide attention to grammar rules, because that's she made a lot of those mistakes. So that's something some weaknesses that she has. Now let's move further down. Let's look at some opportunities for her where she can do better, what she can actually work on. The first opportunity that she does have is that they can develop their ability to write clear and concise sentences. That is what she needs to do. Okay, that's number one, because her sentences, her structure that she used, and the points that she made, they are good, but they do lack a little bit of clarity. And of course, if she does practice more advanced grammar sentences, structures such as complex sentences and conditionals, of course, that'll help her out as well. So that is something I would recommend again. And finally, she could develop her organizational skills by creating clear and effective introductions and conclusions. That is important. The way you lay down the information, it's essential that you do it in a way that it flows and it makes sense. Coherence and cohesion, that's basically what it is. If you need to brush up on that, there is another video that you can look at exactly what coherence and cohesion means and how to actually achieve that. So the link is above there. Yeah, it'll show up now. Now let's look at the threats. So in case she does not follow some of the advice that I've given her, she's free to not to do so, but some things that will impact is that if grammar errors and organizational issues remain in the IELTS writing by the time she goes and gives her exam, she may not be able to achieve a high score. Like the essay that she gave is easy 6.5, 7 bands, but if the target is 8.5, 8, somewhere there's a lot of work to be done, and that's basically grammatical errors that she is making. And of course, if she does not put in the work for expressing the ideas clearly and cohesively, that's going to be an issue as well. And of course, if grammar isn't fixed properly, if she doesn't go through the sentence structures, she will continue to make those mistakes with coherence and cohesion. So it's kind of like a vicious circle. To break out of it, just need to practice some. That's pretty much it. Now, let's do a deep dive into the essay. We'll go paragraph by paragraph, find what the main big errors are and what the correct answer is. So basically, fixing the mistakes. Now let's have a look at this sentence here. Although there is much advancement in technology in this modern era, it is not obvious that everyone gets benefits from these advances. Have a quick look. I'm gonna have a sip of water and let's look at this. The first mistake that she made is incorrect verb form. So you see, where she wrote, there is much advancement in technology. This bit here, that's incorrect. It should be, although there have been many advancements in technology. See how the words are being used? Have been many advancements instead of much advancement in technology. In this modern era, it is not obvious that everyone benefits from these advances. So this bit here where she says everyone gets benefits. Gets benefits, it's wrong. You should not be using those. You could say that everyone benefits if you have to, or you could say everyone get benefits. There shouldn't be an S in get here, so it gets is just wrong. So something highly recommended that that's fixed. And if you make these errors, make sure you kind of like work on those as well. So it's kind of like something to look at. Just a moment. All right. So next thing. Some believe breakthroughs in electronic technology will halt the conventional ways of reading newspapers. Again, it's subject-verb agreement that it doesn't make sense. Like some believe breakthroughs in electronic technology. It should be some believe that breakthroughs, because there should be a that between believe and breakthroughs. There should be a that in between there. And electronic technology will replace it's not will halt the conventional. The way the word halt is used here, it's incorrect. It should be replace. That's the correct way to use, the right words. Of course, she is going for, a variety of vocabulary. So although it is incorrect, she would still get some points for like using some words in some context. But here the word halt is used a little bit in the wrong way. So the other way, like the correct form would be will replace the conventional ways of reading newspapers. So that's the second mistake. Next mistake is there is an increasing trend of reading papers and magazines among youngsters as well as old people. Now, incorrect word choice again. The author, she does know a lot of words, but how to use them properly in sentences, there is a little bit of a disconnect there. So the correction would be, there is an increasing trend of reading newspapers and magazines. So you see what the difference there is? So make sure it's there. Among both young and old people. So instead of saying among youngsters as well as old people, you should say among both young and old people. Just simplifies it, and of course it just makes a lot more sense. So some mistakes there that were made, something to work on, I guess. And the word press itself, press is, a place that makes newspaper. It's kind of like, saying, it's hard to explain, but what I would recommend is like not using the word press. You cannot substitute newspapers for press. So, if you're talking about a newspaper, you have to use the word newspaper. So now next error. Acknowledgement of current affairs of a particular state via journals is an economical way, and it consumes less optics because it can be held in hands. There are a few incorrect word choices here. The word optics should not be used, because if she is mentioning to eyesight, mention eyesight, or don't even use it if you don't have to. So a correction would be keeping up with current affairs of a particular state via newspapers is an economical way to stay informed and is more convenient because it can be held in one's hands. So that's the correction there, So it makes a little bit more sense to kind of put it as such. So yeah. Now moving forward. So at some point, during the essay, she wrote, reading ebooks and editorials from the internet on screens requires eye power and connection of internet. Again, incorrect word choice and somewhat, an incorrect preposition that is being used here. So the correction would be, reading ebooks and editorials from the internet on screens requires good eyesight and an internet connection. So you need to add an in front of internet connection, not connection of internet. It doesn't make sense. Okay? And eye power, that is something we talk to each other like, oh, my eye power is weak or whatever. But when you go about writing something like that, it doesn't make sense. You have to talk about eyesight. That is the correct word that you will use. Okay? So something to keep in mind there. And so here's another mistake that she made. Although there are many recordings regarding broadcast on various channels, it cannot diminish the standard tradition of receiving papers by postman to read at home. The use of word postman here is incorrect. Shouldn't be used as such. Again, the sentence structure is a little bit off as well. The correct way to write this would be, although there are many news broadcasts available on various channels, they cannot replace the traditional practice of receiving newspapers by post to read at home. You receive newspapers by post. Postman delivers post, but not so much like, newspapers. So, incorrect word to use there. So when we talk about errors, that's like, these are some mistakes that you want to keep in mind, some words that you learned today. And of course, this will enrich your vocabulary as well. Another mistake here. So when she wrote, this practice is still carried out by retired employees from their work and some other readers who prefer to hold the booklet in their hands instead of surfing a lot of the time on screens. This sentence structure is incorrect. Surfing a lot of the time, that's wrong as well. There shouldn't be the in front of time. A lot of time is the correct one. Now the entire correction here is, this practice is still carried out by retired employees and other readers who prefer to hold the newspaper or magazine in their hands instead of spending a lot of time on screens. So, did you notice how the sentence has been changed? That's kind of the correct form to use when you're creating these structures. Now, next one is, in conclusion, I believe that this advanced world possesses more convenience than before, but the traditional norms of newspapers cannot be replaced with electronic newspapers. Again, the words have been used incorrectly and there is an incorrect sentence structure. Correction, the way you should write this is, in conclusion, I believe that while this advanced world offers more conveniences than before, traditional newspapers cannot be fully replaced by their electronic counterparts. So you realize the word counterparts? That is basically saying, someone who is replacing the other. So, or they do somewhat similar functions, but they are a little bit, different from each other. So you can use the word as such as well. So those are some of the mistakes, that the user made here, Alpha. Now, next. I'm gonna give Alpha a 5-day attack plan. At the same time, you can utilize this as well. If your writing is somewhere about 6.5 to 7 and you are making somewhat similar mistakes using words in the incorrect ways, sentence structures are a little bit off, making some grammatical errors, I would highly recommend that you follow, this attack plan. This will basically give you the fundamentals that you need. And of course, it's just 5 days, so it's very easy to kind of brush up on it. So let's get started. Day number 1, start with a review of basically all the grammar rules. This is where I would start. In case of Alpha, she needs to focus on verb tense, subject-verb agreements, and sentence structures. That's where most of her mistakes have been, basically in the entire essay, so that's where I would start. She could use grammar books, she could use online resources or grammar checkers to identify areas of weaknesses. Of course, refer back to this video. There's I've given exactly what the errors are. And of course, if you need more help with resources on finding grammar books and such, reach out to us, we're happy to help. Finally, on day 1, she could also practice writing short sentences using correct grammar. And of course, the words that, the vocabulary that she learns, she can basically understand what the meaning of the word is and then try to write a sentence with it. That's day 1. That's what she should do. Day 2 would be vocabulary development. So on day 2, focus on learning new words, new vocabulary by reading newspapers, magazines, books. What you want to focus on is, the way the ideas are transitioned from one to the next. See how the paragraphs are going from one paragraph to the second paragraph. See what the transition is and the words that they're using. So learn those words. Of course, you should create a list of those words and try to use them in your writing, because that's the whole point of this exercise. So that's your day 2. Of course, practice writing sentences with new vocabulary words, and of course, try to use, words in a more contextual use. That's kind of like, where I would say. So learning how to use words in different ways and different forms. For example, learn where you should be using the word press as opposed to newspapers. So knowing the difference, that is what makes a lot of sense when you talk about vocabulary development. Day 3, she should do some writing practice because that's essential again. So practice writing essays using sample essay questions or self-chosen topics if you want to, but since it's IELTS, I would really recommend focusing on questions that have come in the past IELTS exam, so use those. On third day, aim to write at least one full essay in one sitting. That's the point. You want to basically practice as though you're giving an actual exam. That's how you want to train yourself. So do that. And of course, focus on proper grammar and sentence structures. That is very important for day 3. Of course, revise the essay for errors and see if you can get some feedback from someone on your essay. It could be your teacher, it could be a tutor, it could be someone else, whoever can help you with that. Day 4, it's about essay structure and coherence. This is important because that is a little bit lacking in the essay. So focus on how to structure essays, focus on how coherence is achieved, and of course refer to the video that I mentioned earlier that we already have out on coherence and cohesion. Focus on that video and you'll learn a lot about how to support arguments and how to basically use examples. Of course, another thing she needs to learn is how to transition between paragraphs to improve the overall flow of the essay. So that's important. Finally, practice writing essays with focus on structure and coherence. That's your day 4 task. And day 5, this is the end of the plan. That's basically revision and editing. Here, you should review your previous essays and revise for errors. So all the essays that you've written, try to find the mistakes in those, see what those mistakes are, and of course, fix the mistakes. Focus on grammar mistakes and focus on improving clarity and coherence. Of course, use online grammar checker if you have to, to find what the errors are. That'll help. Or if you need help, ask a teacher or a tutor to review basically your essays. So that's something I would highly recommend. That's basically a quick overview of how to improve your writing. And hope you find this video useful. And of course, if you're struggling with IELTS Writing Task 2, I will be publishing more videos on those. There's quite a bit of stuff to be done here because writing essays can be a little difficult. And if you aren't seeing the success that you should be, first of all, I would recommend that find out exactly what mistakes you're making. For example, in this essay, the key mistakes that the writer had was grammatical errors, tenses were used incorrectly, some words were used incorrectly. So it's just some easy to fix mistakes. And if those are fixed, of course, she can easily achieve 7.5, 7, or even 8, if she uses the proper structures. So I hope this video helps you, and I hope you find this useful. If you liked it and you would like to see more of something like this, drop us a comment and we'll continue to make more of it, because if you don't find it useful, then I guess it's pointless to make this content. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Happy to help. And I guess if you liked it, share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel, because I'll be putting a lot more information like this in the coming few weeks, so don't miss out. And I guess we'll see you in the coming future. Good luck with your exam, and see you then. Take care. Bye.